Chris, good evening.
Hey, Jim.
Chris, we're not taking things lightly tonight, my friend. We're using the power of rock, Chris, to seduce you into the dark side.
I'm that's fun, but I'm good.
No, Chris, you don't understand. We are going to possess your soul through the power of dark rock, Chris. You're coming along with us.
I love music, but it's not for me. I'm good. It's spooky.
Chris, okay, I can tell that I'm not getting through to you. I didn't want to have to do this, Chris, but you will join us in our evil journey.
Oh, God, no! No! God, no!
The Black Roses logo works every time. Jamie, roll it.
Trash Movie Bonanza with your hosts, Jim and Chris.
Folks, welcome to Trash Movie Bonanza, a show where two buddies take a look at some schlock or underperforming movies and take a look and decide, was it really that bad? I'm one half of your hosts. My name is Chris. I also host a show about comics called Comic Tropes. And with me, as always, is my better half.
Thank you for saying that, Chris. I'm Jimmy Jams, freelance artist and guilty party of forcing Chris and the rest of you to deal with the phenomenon known as Black Roses from 1988.
Yeah, we've watched some bad movies, no question, and some low-budget movies, and I just wonder though that this one crossed the line, Jim, and I started to wonder, does Jim have a problem? Is he mad at me? Is he? This movie was so. Yeah, I was going to say so bad. It is entertaining, but for ostensibly a horror movie, it undercuts itself with every decision in terms of like actually having an impact for scariness. I don't know. Do you think it was intended to be horror?
It was, but the reason I wanted to show it to you and the reason I wanted to talk about it is to almost have a scientific dissection of how many things go wrong here. And for future filmmakers or future storytellers, future comic book writers and artists, what not to do with your production. And for example, Chris, in the first 1 second of this movie opening, the monsters are revealed. So as we all know, we've talked about it before in the past, in horror, you don't show your monster, your creature for the first 15 to 20 minutes of your movie. You build the suspense, right. You build the drama, the mood, the atmosphere, and this movie gets it wrong, which I find charming and awesome and hilarious. In the first minute of the movie, we're going in the wrong direction.
And before we get too deep into the weeds, I'll just say, like, folks, the premise is so simple to this movie, Black Roses, that Jim showed me. You will always hear, oh, rock and roll or heavy metal is the devil's music, or it will, like, bring kids to, a dark path. This basically cuts out any subtext and just says, yeah, the band is demons, and if they visit your town, your kids will turn into killers and literal monsters. And our hero, if we can even call him that, is just a middle-aged high school teacher.
One should remain open-minded. I don't think your parents want to stop the concert just to annoy you. It's just that they're afraid of change. There's never been a rock concert in this town. They probably don't know what to do with one.
Oh my God, he's such a loser.
Well, Chris, that is the funny thing is like the PMRC and Tipper Gore were right. Rock and roll was sent here by the devil to possess children. The parents and authority figures are right in this universe.
Yeah, exactly. They're right.
And this casual mayor of the town of where does this place take place again?
Who
It's
knows?
I had it
Somewhere in
written down somewhere.
California, I got the sense, but I don't know.
And
It's a small town. It's a
small town.
podunk nobody town.
Yeah. But the mayor is this guy who's like, remember the Beatles and when you had long hair back in the day? It's like, this will probably all work out. Like, let's let the kids have their fun.
And what about the Beatles? Now, let's don't forget the Beatles. Martin, do you remember when your boy grew his hair long like Ringo Starr? They wanted to run that kid out of town on a rail. Now, was he evil simply because he had long hair?
He was wrong. And the squares and the authority figures were right.
He was wrong.
Rock and roll is sent from the devil.
Which, yeah, you're right. Like, the first scene at first doesn't really make sense. It's basically a prologue, maybe, I guess you'd call it.
Yeah.
We don't I thought that we were joining the movie in media res, like this is what's going to happen or something like that, because the rock and rollers are on stage, but they have demon faces already. The kids are going crazy. Basically, when a theater owner, like it's like in a movie theater or something like that, or I don't know where, they open the doors and all the audience are sort of zombie monsters. And then we just cut to titles and start over. And at first I was very confused, like whether that was just teasing what the movie would be about or if that happened later. No, I guess it was supposed to literally happen before we meet any characters, right?
Yeah. And then
confusing.
We do cut to an awesome opening credit sequence with an animated Black Roses chrome lettered logo with a Lamborghini driving into frame, 2 Lamborghinis. And to me, 1988 is when this movie came out. To me, it's like, we got the heavy metal band showing up in the small town in Lamborghinis. Like, I'm on board.
I know.
This.
I know. That animated title was good. And I will say that while they give away the monsters right away, Jim, at least in the first scene, they're in a very dark auditorium, and the monsters never look better than then, when they're just sort of like masks. Nothing more than that. So it starts off and I'm like, okay, it's low budget, but I'm going with it. They've got good masks. They've got that animated title. It just shows a bit of an effort. And then it becomes the most boring slog for the next 20 or 30 minutes. It's so boring.
And I just realized the name of the town, Mill Basin. It's supposed to be a small, I guess, Midwest town. This was all shot in Canada.
Oh, yeah. And you hear the accents of the actors like right away.
Yeah. Yeah. But dude, it's weird because I've seen this movie several times, so it all congeals quite nicely for me because it is a bad, fun, have this on in the background while you're inking comic pages type movie.
Okay.
But I don't know if you felt this, but like the misdirect of the movie is you think that this kid, Johnny, and this girl, Julie, who Johnny's like a 40-year-old guy playing a 16-year-old in high school. You think that they're going to be our protagonists, sort of. And then really the protagonist of the movie is Mr. Morehouse, this mustachioed, turtleneck wearing English teacher. It's so odd.
Matt Morehouse, the high school English teacher who kind of looks like a low rent Tom Selleck, something like that, right?
Yeah.
Just an average middle-aged guy, but he's hip, he's with it. He has an uncomfortably close relationship with one of his female students, Julie.
Yeah.
And I kept being like icked by that. I'll tell you something here. Matt is the only one that he likes poetry and music and stuff like that, but he somehow is the only one smart enough to see that, these guys are literal demons. Yes. It would have carried so much more weight, this movie would have, if Matt had a personal connection to a potential victim. For instance, what if his girlfriend was a teacher that was in danger from the demons? What if he had an actual son or daughter that was in this class or going to these concerts? the closest thing he has to a personal connection is that he's really getting along well with one of his students.
Yeah, it's an awkward...
Which he doesn't save.
Yeah. And then there's a comment. There's a comment later. Johnny and Julie are walking the streets at night, and Johnny makes a comment about how the whole school knows that her and Mr. Morehouse are, and he makes a weird little sound effect like they're hooking up.
Mr. Morehouse.
What do you mean?
Come on, everybody in school knows that you and he are...
She, of course, denies this. They're not, but it's acknowledged that there's this uncomfortable, weird thing going on between them.
Yeah. It seems so unnecessary to have like made them as close as they are. She could have still been the prize student, but there could have been like it, or they just flat out are hooking up. But no, instead it's just awkward. It's just an awkward relationship.
Yeah. And like I mentioned, man, we have this basically is a trope in all these old movies we watch, which is we have a 40-year-old man playing like a 17-year-old boy. And it's so odd and awkward. And it's like, wait, these are high schoolers? Like what's happening?
All of the high schoolers look way too old, like way too old. We're used to in TV, they'll hire like a 21-year-old and they're playing like 16 or 17 in high school. But you just sort of go with it. But I didn't look up their ages, but these folks do not look high school age. It's very distracting.
Yeah.
Like, what are all these adults doing in class? Remedial education? Are they getting their GEDs?
Yeah. And to make it worse, like Johnny overcompensates his performance by acting like a punk teenager. And when him and Julie are walking through the streets at night, he's doing this thing where he's like almost like frolicking like a teenager would do. And he's jumping on the light posts and swinging around them. And it's like, wait, what is he doing? What is this supposed to be? And it's like, he's supposed to be acting like a teenager, like a rebellious.
He's rebellious, exactly. Or angry, or just like frustrated to be in a small town. But you're right. Frolicking is such a good word, Jim. He's just playing around and kicking his feet and skipping. And it reminds me of, what was that Mexican horror movie you had us watch early on?
Don't Panic.
Don't Panic. Where the guy's supposed to be maybe like a 19-year-old, but he's running around in his pajamas.
Yes.
It infantilizes this kid that is supposed to be a young adult. It's so strange.
Yeah. And also, man,
you're right. Like, there's a lot of scenes with Johnny and Julie, and I think in most horror movies, we're used to the protagonists being the young kids, but it slowly morphs into just being Matt's story. Matt versus the demon.
Yes. Yeah. And before I forget, I did want to mention, like, I don't know if you noticed this, but in that frolicking scene and a couple other scenes, there's this musical score that's almost like Amblin-esque, almost Spielberg-esque of like strings, and it's whimsical. And it's like, wait, are they trying to do like a Spielbergian whimsical? Like, it's a small town, but it's out of place. It's
I'd love to follow up on that. I do know what you're saying, because Matt has his own heroes theme.
Yes.
And it feels completely out of place in a horror movie. There's one or two scenes where he's just like hustling out of school in his school gear with his little satchel. And there's this triumphant score of him doing something heroic, but he's almost never actually doing anything heroic. But it is the hero's theme, and it does not fit in a heavy metal themed horror movie.
Not at all. Dude, it's like a march. It's like an adventure hero's march. And in you're totally right, man. And in one of the scenes, he's storming out of the school building to go to the library to do research. And we get this dramatic heroes theme of Matt going to the library. It's
like
so...
when the James Bond score kicks in because he's, finally driving his Aston Martin and shooting bad guys, or Indiana Jones has used his whip on a dozen Nazis. This is just Matt charging out of the school to the library, and the bombastic score rises with emotion. And you're like, this is so unimpressive. And it just doesn't fit, though. You'd think for a movie, I got that out, a movie about music, they would have put a lot more care into the score because people are going to be listening to the music.
Yeah. What did you think of the actual Black Roses music?
Not bad. It's kind of clear that some of their songs are by different actual bands,
right.
It doesn't feel like an album. It feels like just a bunch of songs. I don't know how to describe that well. I'm not well versed in music theory.
Yeah. No, I think you're right.
Their music that they play isn't bad. Like it isn't something that I was like, that's an all-time banger that I'll remember. But none of it was bad.
I do enjoy the Me Against the World is sort of the one they repeat more than once of when they fully rock out and are getting demonic. Like that's one of the kind of main chants and theme songs they play to, hypnotize or possess the kids, the 40-year-olds, Chris, that are in the audience that are supposed to be 17.
It's so crazy. Like Matt looks like he's 2 years older than his students.
Yeah. Yeah. It doesn't there's
have a lot of memorable characters, by the way, folks. There are a bunch of characters, but they're not memorable characters because, like Jim said, there is a town mayor, and I guess he's got a daughter that used to date Matt. It took me a while to parcel that one out, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So she's sort of bitchy and unimportant. There's one or two teachers that are like, oh, this music's too loud.
Yeah.
Even when they're playing calm music to not scare the town elders.
Yeah.
There's lots of little characters, lots of students that only have one or two lines.
Yeah.
In the first monster scene, though, we get Vincent Pastore, an actual actor I recognized.
Oh, Big Pussy from Sopranos.
Big Pussy from Sopranos. Yeah. This is the first thing he ever did.
That scene is amazing. Before we get to that, I did want to drop a little deep cut of the woman who is the head of the PTA who shows the googly-eyed skull symbol. That actress, man, is the actress from Creature from the Black Lagoon. I don't know her name, but
I forget too.
She has horror pedigree. She's to me a legendary kind of Hollywood actress in a way. It's that's memorable. A horror.
I think that she'd have a more important role in this, but it's really largely forgotten once she just sort of objects to the music. She isn't coming back into the movie again and again to object. It's just sort of an initial objection. But show that art again. Show that art again. We need to look at that logo.
Yeah.
So that's the band's logo, which everybody acts like it's, something very scary. I don't know. It's supposed to probably be reminiscent of classic logos like Black Sabbath and the Melvins and things like that. I don't know.
Judas Priest, Misfits. But dude, we talked about this before we started recording, but when she holds this up in the meeting, you as the audience, it's a laugh out loud moment of that's supposed to be the satanic symbol that people are terrified of. It's a googly-eyed cartoon. This would be in a children's cartoon. This is not threatening. Another thing they got wrong. I can't believe
how much you paid for that, by the way, Jim.
Oh, and guys, by the way, the effort I put into Trash Movie Bonanza, I was telling Chris, I woke up this morning and brewed coffee and actually drew this morning. I freeze framed the scene in the movie and sat in front of my computer.
It is completely accurate. That's really impressive, Jim.
So, Chris,
thank you.
I'm mailing this to you.
No.
I'm forcing you to frame this, and this is now going to have to hang in the background of your basement for every show that you do from here on out, Chris.
Oh, my God. This is like, this is just a study in a horror movie where every choice they make undercuts the horror. And
Yes.
I'm just stunned at them. What else do you want to talk about? Because I just want to talk about the monster scenes, but you tell me like what we should focus on. You chose it.
I think one of the funny things is the town being so scared of this band. The band performs and they choose this small town to do a run of like 4 concerts in a row to test out their material, 3 concerts.
Yeah.
And they're basically performing in the gymnasium at the school. I mean, this low budget movie, they couldn't afford like a real concert venue. The first show they do, the first concert the band does, they're well dressed and they're completely safe and it's well lit. The parents and the mayor are there. They start off doing a rock ballad.
My hometown is a page that's turned way deep down.
And within 30 seconds of the song, all the adults are like, this seems safe. We can go. Let's go now. And they all leave. As soon as the door closes, the lights go down. The band tears off their outfits. They're wearing like leather, almost like BDMS gear or whatever.
Yeah,
and they go
definitely.
into the hard rock songs that begin to possess the children that are there.
It's so good, folks. It's like, who leaves in the middle of the first song if you're checking it out? Like, at least wait till the first song is done, right? But they all leave right in the middle of the song. They go, oh, there's nothing to object to here. Except Matt, who just like is suspicious, I guess, and he's proven right, but he has no reason to be. And he's like waiting at the door, just like watching. And then the mayor's finally like, are you coming? He's like, yeah. And you're right. It's all of a sudden they turn into leather daddies the second the last adult leaves. I really wanted a scene where like one person was like, forgot my wallet. What the?
Yeah, right. It is a subtle thing too, man. Cause I'm not it's slightly embarrassing to admit this, but I've seen this movie several times. But the next day at school after the concert, the kids in class, like their hair is all like slightly spikier. Their outfits are slightly more like punk and rockish. And Matt is beginning to notice like his kids are slipping away from him and they're losing interest in talking about Emerson poetry and
I gotta tell you, Matt, this is the first time I've had a teacher in here complaining that his kids didn't get upset over a homework assignment. You got me worried.
It's not my lessons, Sam. It's my kids. I mean, last week, all they could think about was midterms. Now it's black roses.
Which, by the way, no offense, but I loved English as a class. Ralph Waldo Emerson and Thoreau was like the most boring thing I ever had to go through. So in this scene, Matt like prompts the kids for a response, and they all just sit there just totally silent. Nobody gives him anything. And I was just like, yeah, that's fair though.
Right. Right. Yeah.
That's fair. That's reasonable. Yeah. You shouldn't expect much more than that. They're not possessed yet. They're just really bored by your lesson plan.
And the next time we see the class after that, one of the girls makes a statement that's like very relevant to today, where she's almost like, I'm tired of hearing about these old like white dudes poetry. Let's talk about some new shit. Let's talk about Damien, the lead singer of Black Rose. Let's talk about his lyrics. Let's talk about, and Matt's like, oh shit, I'm really losing them now. But it is kind of a relevant thing where she's just like, yeah, I'm tired of talking about these old dudes and their stupid like poetry.
you got to mix in something that's relevant to kids today. Otherwise they're not going to understand. Why are we studying this older stuff? Like, you got to tie it in real life. Like, you got to. The band is giving free tickets. That's what makes Matt suspicious beyond just them being quiet. He's like, why would a band play 3 shows in our town and give away free tickets? Like, what kind of a business plan is that? But he's the only one that finds that suspicious. There's no other adults that find anything objectionable there, from parents to teachers to politicians. And then the kids also have a pro wrestling match in the what do you call it, in the parking lot.
Yeah, someone pulls up in a pickup truck and they're giving out Black Rose's vinyl records.
Yeah.
And someone grabs the last record, and one of the greaser guys from the class like suplexes him, body slams him, and
like really like lifts him above his head.
Yeah.
By like chest and crotch, and like throws him down. And I was like, somebody just did a stunt that this movie did not call for. And I just really hope he didn't get hurt. I hope he got paid, because it wasn't that impressive, but it just was so unnecessary.
Yeah.
It added nothing to the movie.
Chris, a little Easter egg I saw in the background of that scene. I saw like a 8-year-old Daniel Warren Johnson who was like, do a power bomb, do a power bomb. It's where Dan's art came from, Black Roses.
So, that's why we're talking about it, folks, is it inspired something beautiful.
Yeah.
I wish. I wish you could look at this movie and go like, well, at least it kept the Ferrignos housed during the cold winter months. Did you know that Lou Ferrigno's wife is one of the actresses in this?
No, who is she?
Priscilla, the bitchy lady. That's Lou Ferrigno, the Hulk's real life wife.
Is Priscilla is the daughter of the mayor?
Yeah,
the blonde. Okay,
yeah.
Who I guess had a history with Matt. They went on one date or something.
Yeah, something simple like that. But that's Lou Ferrigno's wife.
Oh, interesting.
Carla Ferrigno.
Okay. Speaking of famous people in this movie, Chris, I sort of interrupted you when you were talking about the big pussy scene with him.
Oh, can we do that?
First of all, he gives his son a healthy homophobic slur within
like the first few seconds of appearing. Yeah, it just does not age well. Boy, the way we talked in '88. Yeah, he just calls his son a real bad slur because his son is wearing an earring.
Only two kinds of men wear earrings: pirates and
yeah.
Such rebelliousness.
Earrings, man.
If I was in high school and I got a tattoo or an earring and my parent called me something like that, I would legit become a runaway. I'd just be like, no, I'm too old to deal with this. I wouldn't care about the ramifications, but anyway. But in a way, that dad sure gets his comeuppance.
Yes.
He wants his son out of the living room just so that he can read the newspaper.
Yeah.
I don't need any distractions. I got to see what happens in this week's Heathcliff.
Right. He opens up Highlights magazine or something.
And it's such a terrible, the record player keeps turning on by itself and playing Black Roses music. And he's like,
the possessed
and then
vinyl.
They try to make it scary with no money. What if you and I, for an opening skit, had to create a monster with whatever's lying around? That's the level of what they come up with, basically.
It's a Muppet spider creature demon thing that
comes out of a speaker.
The idea of it attacking him though, and then actually pulling him into the speaker, I do like that idea, but obviously the low budget in this movie, the execution, it's not pulled off. It's very silly and cheesy, but that idea of the evil of the music could actually pull you into the speaker and you're dead. It's a cool idea. I give them
credit. You're right. They've got interesting ideas that they can't fulfill. However, I've seen productions give it a better effort. I grew up watching some old Doctor Who on PBS. And back in the day, classic Doctor Who didn't have a lot of money, actually. But the writers still went with the biggest sci-fi ideas they could. And they just the sets would wobble. The creature effects were wonky. They asked you to buy in. And with good writing and sincere performances, I'd argue it works.
Mm-hmm.
You do have to take a leap of faith to just sort of get past the effects. But this movie, there's little choices, Jim. If this guy was being attacked by the puppet, it's clearly just him holding the puppet and wiggling it in front of his face. And the lights are dialed up to 11 in the living room.
Right.
So, and there's the music doesn't work. There's little things they could have done to make it more effective.
Yeah. Yeah, it's odd that there was no one on set. I mean, we've talked about low budget stuff like this before, where it's like, was there no one who just had the idea of like, can you change the lighting? Can you turn the lighting down? Can you and it's like, no, that'll take too long. That's 2 hours of lighting setup
That
we're
might have
talking
been
about
it,
now.
though.
We can't do that.
I think that they said the budget for this was $400,000, and that is pretty small in 1988. That is pretty darn small.
Oh, yeah.
When you consider that you've got one or two actors that do have credits, you've got some extras, like just the food and the time and the crew, it would add up pretty fast.
Yes. And
those Lamborghinis didn't drive themselves.
Oh my God.
What if that was like half the budget?
I was going to say that was the budget, Chris. Them renting 2 Lamborghinis was like
the producer just wanted to drive a Lamborghini. He's like, we need it for a week. They're like, but it's only on camera for like 20 seconds. He's like, I need it for a week.
But right.
I'm driving up to see my ex-wife and the kids, and I want them to know that I'm doing well.
Yeah. I mean, I'm getting a 8-ball of cocaine and I'm driving this Lamborghini around this strange town in Canada, wherever this is being shot.
Mill Base in Canada. We'll just pretend that it's a real town.
What did you think of, since we're talking about the creatures, what did you think of the random shots of the kids turning into rubber skeleton monsters in the concert venue? Just the quick flashes of...
Laugh out loud. Laugh out loud. Although I'd also argue it's the most effective surprise in this movie. Just before that, I remember my wife was watching this with me, and Chrissy goes, "Is this movie ever going to get scary?" I laughed. I was like, I don't know.
No, yeah.
But you're right. It's like night 2 of the concert, I guess. And now when Damien plays, sometimes he'll like look at a girl or something, and boom, she turns into like something cheaper than the Life Force zombie skeletons. Because it's still got the googly eyes.
Yeah.
Whoever made this was really into googly eyes.
I was just going to say the exact same thing, dude. It's like, was there a googly eye fetish with the main creature designer on this movie? But here's the other theory, Chris, and I did no research on this. The other theory is all the different scenes of the monsters and their incarnations of what they look like almost feels like, did the prop department of this movie just have access to different pre-existing creatures and rubber suits from other movies and say, we're throwing all this shit into a box, bring the box on set, and we'll use whatever we can for... That's what it feels like, man.
That's an interesting theory. Well, I didn't come across anything that would back that up. I will say none of the monsters have any consistency. Right. There's no consistent design across any of them, in my opinion. So that does make a little bit of sense. Like, what if they just had access to existing unused monsters?
Yeah. Because in the very first shot of the movie,
Maybe.
when you mentioned like the band looks, it's lit. Well, they look kind of cool. They're like monstrous.
At least Damien did.
Yeah. But then
that's not what he looks like later in the movie.
Later, he turns into like a baby Rancor monster.
Yes.
From the Jedi.
Oh my God, you're right. A baby Rancor with like hands that are loaves of bread.
Yeah. And it's like, well, wait, why didn't you just have him be the monster from the first shot? Like,
so much more effective. Just do a really good mask. They should have just stuck with just a really good mask. But and we get another monster before that. Let's talk about Julie.
Yes.
Julie starts overtly flirting with Matt. And Johnny watches for a while. This is at school. And I think is it Julie that says, "Let's make Blood City"? Somebody says, "Let's make Blood City."
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll give Jamie the time codes to play the clip, because that's at that same point.
Let's make Blood City.
Then Julie like goes from being like the best student, like there's hardly any transition. She beats her stepfather to death, and then she goes to like blow Matt at his house.
Yes.
Matt just goes, "Julie, no!" Boom! Like decks her across the face.
Actually, no.
I was like, whoa, that's a big reaction, Matt.
Yeah.
And then she turns around. She's got like the goofiest monster teeth in the world. I'll like give you the best simulation I can.
It is that. That's the exact scene. Oh shit, Julie, what?
And then she glows purple and turns into just the most ridiculous monster. My wife was going, do you think that this monster was all puppet because it's got a real goofy head on a long neck? Or was that somebody in a suit that was controlling like a puppet aperture? I couldn't tell.
It looks like it was complete puppet, and there were people with like sticks like guiding it. It looks like there's it because it moves so awkwardly. You know, it's so clunky.
What did you think of Matt's choice for a weapon? He's in a house, lots of options. What does he go with?
Oh, tennis racket, dude. That's my go-to.
Boop, boop, boop. And then he gives up on the tennis racket when the monster starts cutting the netting. And I was thinking to myself, you know, if you're going to go with a tennis racket as your weapon of choice against a monster, I would argue using the frame would be more effective than the bouncing netting. I don't know. But I've never been attacked by a monster, so maybe in the heat of the moment, I wouldn't know how to react. But I did like, and he just throws it away because, you know, it's ruined. This tennis racket's no good.
And then he grabs like a 2x4. He grabs a piece of wood.
It's there's like a little stool or something in the kitchen that they get knocked into and it breaks. And he fails her with it. So I was okay, that's a better choice, Matt. That is a better choice for a weapon. But I did like that his first choice was a tennis racket, which weighs all of maybe 2 pounds.
Oh my God. Yeah. Ash uses a chainsaw. Mr. Morehouse uses a tennis racket. It's the same.
By the way, folks, not the end of ridiculous weapons that Matt will use against monsters. Just the first.
That's true.
Just the first.
And also, so before this scene with Julie happens, we do want to address that by the time that happens, the kids have been completely corrupted by the band. So we have scenes of like Johnny has sex with a demonic girl in his bedroom who creeps in through the window. She possesses him to shoot his dad point blank.
I forgot that he shot his dad because it happened so fast.
It happens very quickly.
Like, hey, Johnny. And it's over.
What's the matter, son?
I love you, Dad.
So, Mr. M.
Oh. The greaser guy from class runs over his mom with the car. And then
he backs into her and she comically goes flying through the sky.
Yes. And then we cut to
Janie with her therapist.
Tina seduces.
Oh yeah, that's right. There's a girl named Tina that decides to play strip gin with random dad.
With her friend's dad. And before we see that, the friend's little brother is playing with his superhero toys.
That's
and
right.
Throws them into the fire. And he's like, I'm going to get you, Batman. And Chris and I, when we were watching it, we were both like, those figures are worth money. Don't throw those in the fire. He throws them in the fire.
I know. Yeah, he burns his Hulk and Batman toys in the fire.
Yeah. And dude, the thing is this is so
that's the most tragic scene. That was the one that scared me the most, I guess, in retrospect. I was like, oh, I would have liked to have had those on a shelf.
Yes.
That's the amount of scare that I got out of this movie going, oh, darn it.
Comic nerds across the world were heard crying when that scene happened.
Crying is too intense. I wasn't that upset. Like I was just like, this movie, this movie wishes it could have inspired that level of passion.
Yes.
It settles for a.
But Chris, speaking of passion, the completely awkward strip gin scene with
I
like,
don't know the game gin. So I don't
he's
know.
like, let's play some gin rummy. And then his daughter leaves and is like, I'm done. I'm going to bed. And her friend stays behind. There's this, the dad is willingly going along with like seducing and playing strip poker with like a 17-year-old girl, I guess.
But it legit is funny, folks, because the dad is kind of schlubby. He's like, just a little portly. And he talks like a big nerd. Oh, I don't know about that, Tina. You might need to be getting home.
We can play strip gin.
Strip gin?
I'm sure you know the rules.
Oh, well, yes, actually, I do.
Okay, you deal, and I'll open.
So it's kind of funny. And boobs. I forgot. There's also a scene in this movie where an actress, who knows who, just plays with her boobs in the mirror for like, I don't know, 2 minutes or something.
Yeah.
You don't see any head. You just see boobs getting played with. And I'm like, what did I miss? Like, okay, I guess this was how they secured their R rating, because it sure wasn't the gore.
That was in one of the behind the scenes things. That was an additional like pickup shot. Like
it felt like,
dude, you were bored watching this movie. Like I learned that most of the, like a lot of the monster stuff and deaths and nudity that was added after the fact. Like the original
what would
cut
this movie have been without that?
I don't know.
I guess it would have been the first 30 minutes. Which is
the main, the actress who plays Julie, because that's supposed to be Julie getting ready, fondling her own breast.
I guess, but it didn't necessarily look like her.
That actress was not going to do that scene, so they just had a body double because you don't see her face,
Okay.
And when she seduces Mr. Morehouse, we do get a shot of her topless, but it's from the back. It's a back shot.
Right.
So she's like, I'm not showing my full boobs for Black Roses. No.
Yeah. I don't know. Just there's also one other teen that does something bad. There was a somewhat bitchy, like, it's hard to describe these characters. They don't have lots of big personalities, but there's a somewhat bitchy girl called Janie, and she's seeing a therapist and says, I'm just dealing with so much pressure. I think I'd like to scream. And he's like, well, that's a good idea. She's like, would you open the window so I can do that? And he's like, yeah. And he opens the window and she just pushes him out of like a third-story window. And this dummy goes flying through the sky. And I was like, a dummy in this movie? I'm back in. Like that. I like that. Yes. I'm always down for a good dummy getting tossed from a big height. I'm always down for that.
I feel you. You love your dummies. I know this about you.
I do. I don't know what to say. It really cracks me up to see a dummy get thrown out. Like when it just transitions with one cut from a person to like a really obvious doll. I love it.
Yes. Yeah. And you mentioned Lou Ferrigno's wife, Julie, now being fully possessed, winds up murdering that character.
Yeah. She just cuts the throat, right?
Yeah. That's one of the only like slasher horror movie moments in the whole movie of like, we're getting a knife across throat with blood.
That's true, because it does sort of dig in like deep.
Yeah.
Like that was a little impressive. I was like, okay, why not more of that? I wonder.
Yeah. And dude, they
not
cut
like
out
it was
of that shot.
gory, but it was the closest to a traditional horror sort of kill, and it was effective enough.
Yeah. But they cut out of that.
Enough.
They cut out of that really quick, though.
They do.
You see it, and then it's like, shot from above the car of the aftermath. But if you're a gore fan, you're not getting much out of this movie.
No, I think the only people that would love this are people that like puppets, but are also willing to settle for very average puppets, which is probably a pretty small Venn diagram. Like love puppets, but okay with really bad ones. It's like just barely kisses.
Yeah.
So Matt has killed Julie, and now he decides. This is basically the big culmination. He's like, well, there's the third and final concert. I'm going to save the rest of the kids, the ones that I don't really care about as much, but I'm going to save this town. So he fills up a little gas tank full of gas, gets a flare, and I guess that means his plan was to burn the place down and then somehow in that chaos also save kids. It seems like almost two conflicting ideas, although it works okay. It works okay.
And Chris, my favorite part of his plan, though, is him wearing the stealthy, subtle, fluorescent orange vest, life vest, 80s vest thing that like Marty McFly wears in Back to the Future.
Exactly. He cosplays as Marty McFly and then just sort of like crouches down and walks literally right next to the kids that are watching the concert live. And nobody really takes notice of him because I guess they're hypnotized. And then he pours a tiny bit of gasoline on this little stage. And Damien's like, his line is so good. Damien goes,
"Oh, you're good, Matt. Real good. I'll give you that. Best I ever come across."
And I was like, is he? Is he really, Damien? Our standards are pretty low if that impresses the demon.
And also, I'm sure you noticed this, but Julie's alive again and on stage with Damien.
Was that Julie?
Yeah. Did you notice that?
No. I thought that was just a random girl. Because I just had assumed that Julie was dead.
Because she's the first person Matt grabs to get off the stage.
I remember he grabbed a random blonde girl, but I just like wasn't even in the mindset to consider. Oh my God, that's so weird. That doesn't make sense.
So it's like, does that mean in this universe, like, okay, he killed her in demonic form in his kitchen, but then she's able to resurrect, or she can, I don't know.
No, don't try to come up with an explanation. It just flat out wouldn't make sense.
No.
Damien takes off his wig and turns into, like you said, baby Rancor monster, which is so much less scary than, just a mask. Just a mask or something. And it's very bright, by the way. We didn't mention that, but like there's a lot of light again. It's not a dark evening concert.
Right. But man, they fucked this up too. Like the first shot of him transforming is just his face is like getting wrinkly and kind of demonic, and it looks okay.
It looks
like,
okay.
Just stay with that. And then the next shot is an actor in a full body rubber suit that looks so strange and awkward. It's silly. It's like a comedy beat. It's really bizarre.
It really is strange. And just because I mentioned it earlier, I want to mention the weapon of choice that Matt chooses at this point.
Yes.
Which is one of those big mallets that you use for like a gong, but it's padded. It's like a white padded gong ringer. And he's hitting the monster with this like padded weapon. It does nothing. So he decides to kick it in the groin. This monster clearly has no testicles. Yeah. I don't know what that choice is.
He kicked it in the groin area, and that affected the monster.
It affected him.
The neutered monster. I don't know.
Whatever. Eventually Matt just tosses the flare on that little bit of gas that he got out before he was captured. And all of a sudden, like the kids have been fine with the monsters on stage and the fighting and everything. They've all stayed for that. Why wouldn't you? As soon as there's like this tiny little fire, they all just freak the fuck out.
Yes. That's also a comedy beat when you watch this the first time. It's like
hilarious.
They all snap out of their hypnotism and they're like, holy shit. And they all just make a mad dash for the door. It's awesome. It's really funny.
The only ones that I guess aren't able to escape the flames are the band, except then we, oh, no, wait. Okay, so like the band burns up with the school, I guess, or something. And outside, there is one line that I really loved. the mayor just goes up to Matt and goes,
Jesus Christ, you were right all along.
Jesus Christ, you were right all along. It's like, dude, obviously. I love it, like the vindication at the last minute. And I also like it. He's lost his daughter, but he'd rather go like, you were right. Good call.
Yeah. He's like, wow, this is an exciting evening in our small little town, Matt. This is crazy shit.
Wow. And you'd think that would be the end.
To
an epilogue. This movie has a prologue and an epilogue, and the epilogue is just so lame. Do you want to describe it? I'm burned out.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know how much time has passed, but Matt is watching the news with the mayor, and they're kicking back, and the news reveals that Black Roses is still around and performing, and they're doing Madison Square Garden in New York City. And again, the makers of the movie completely screwed up and missed an incredible, awesome potential beat of, as soon as they say Black Roses is back, they're performing in New York, you cut to Matt and he grabs his gas tank or a bat or a shotgun, and he looks at the mayor and he says, looks like we're headed to New York. Cut to credits.
Yeah,
they do not do that. They miss this incredible opportunity, man, to have a somewhat badass ending.
Yeah.
It just ends.
Go with the comedy, and he picks up, like, I don't know, a fly swatter, and he's like, not on my watch.
Yes. Or the tennis racket again, man. He picks up the
ruined tennis racket. He's like, I've been holding on to Old Blue for just this occasion.
Yeah.
Instead, it's got the news, and I think it like focuses on Damien's picture or something, and there's just this voiceover that just says,
and that concludes tonight's entertainment update. See you tomorrow with
evil.
With a little laughter, cut to
like,
credit.
oh, they're evil. Should have started with that. Should have led with that. So what are they? I guess they're literal demons?
Yeah, they can't be killed by fire. I mean, they're unstoppable. They're gonna eventually possess the whole country's 40-year-old, 17-year-olds. Is that what? Sure.
Do you think that like this idea of heavy metal literally turning people like satanic or demonic, do you think that could have worked?
Yes, if handled completely differently with an actual budget. I think, because man, when you see scenes that are so awkward with Matt next to the little stage, pouring the gasoline on it,
it's so
I feel like before they shot anything, the writer and the director and the producers were like, and then there's going to be this incredible scene at the concert where he sneaks on stage and he douses it with gasoline, and the band goes up in flames, and Damien turns into a beast, and they have a final battle, and they get on set, and the producers are like, well, here's your budget for this shot. Like, how are you going to do? And the director's like, oh, how do we shoot this? You know what I mean? I think there was these grand visions for some of these scenes, and then the budget just did not let them do anything that they envisioned.
I think something a little different. I think that this movie was like, they either found out that they had access to like a high school that was empty, or they found out that they had access to these monsters, and then like it was based off of that. They were like, oh, that's just enough to like help with the budget. And then they had to like quickly build a script around that and like work really fast.
Yeah.
Because I think that if there was a script beforehand, I think that it could have like worked out just character dynamics better. Even if like it didn't look good or seem scary with like the monsters and stuff, it could have given like the main character more of a central stake in everything. You know, it's like, why does he care that much?
Right.
Usually you're going to have like a main character have a personal connection to a potential victim or some sort of dynamic motivation like that. Or you're going to have some scenes where the hero meets the villain once or twice before the final confrontation, you know, like sort of taunt each other a little. There's none of that. So it's really hard to care too much about what happens. Like if the whole town burned down, I wouldn't be that upset. Oh no, all my favorite characters like Johnny and Matt. No, not them.
Yeah. And it's funny, man, because like your theory is probably correct. And low budget done right is like Robert Rodriguez in his book, Rebel Without a Crew, was like, listen, for El Mariachi, I had a turtle, a guitar case, a bunch of fake guns, and an actor.
Yeah.
And I made El Mariachi. Kevin Smith had a convenience store that he worked at and shot clerks late at night when he wasn't working.
Right.
You know, so
Blair Witch was just like, we're going to put 3 people in the woods with a camcorder. And that's like a movie. So you don't necessarily, you have to work within the means you have.
Yeah.
And it's good to be creative for solutions, but if you have $400,000 and you're like, and they're going to fight, you know, all these monsters and have all these extras like in a concert, I don't know. It just doesn't sound realistic. What if you had just like, you know, one singer and he went to like, I don't know, he was like, you know, Johnny Cash type guy and he played at like coffee houses or something, like, you know, let's get it a little smaller. Let's get it a little more intimate though.
Dude, I think you just wrote a better movie, which we're always offering our services to Hollywood, but a folk singer who performs in coffee shops that is demonic. That's hilarious. That's awesome.
That would be kind of funny. That would be, and then you do a little comedy too, because you go, okay, every once in a while, I'm not going to try to undercut the stakes or the horror, but I'm going to lampshade that like we can only do so much. Evil Dead 2, like, you know, goes with a bunch of comedy, even though it was low budget. That movie's great.
Yeah.
But they also do things like where a lot of the horror is sort of just off screen, you know, like a little hand runs into a mouse hole and a comically large amount of blood shoots out of a wall. But like, what's behind there? Or what's this unseen force that chases Ash through the woods? Who knows? But what we come up with in our imagination is much better.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So you've seen this multiple times?
Just because I think it's so bad it's good. It's so misdirected and so silly and incompetent that it's one of my inking like late night movies I'll pop on during the horror season, which is all year long for me, basically.
That's awesome.
But it is terrible. It is terrible. And I apologize for doing this, but at the same time, I hope you at least had a little fun watching.
Oh, of course I had fun. After 20 minutes. Good. Like the first 20 minutes, I'll caution people, not a lot happens. Not a lot happens for a little while. So be patient. As soon as you get to Matt fighting monsters, pretty funny. Until then, you got to like sort of deal with getting to know these characters. And there's not much to know.
Yeah.
But
you're not going to care about most of these characters. You're not, it doesn't matter. You're not going to care.
You've put me through something, so I know what I'm going to put you through next.
Okay. I'm ready.
Madam Web. Have you seen it?
Oh, no.
Yeah,
no,
well, you're gonna. You deserve it after making me watch this.
Oh,
so that's what we're doing next.
Okay.
We're going much more modern. We're going comic book, but we're still going, in my opinion, so bad it's good.
Okay. Challenge accepted.
Challenge accepted, yeah.
And I deserve it for,
yeah. This movie is, like, I thought Hack-O-Lantern was sort of the bar that you were setting for like bad but entertaining but good. This undercuts Hack-O-Lantern by quite a bit.
Yeah. Well, you know what? This actually can all be blamed on Rob Schrab, because when we recorded Halloween 3 with him, I noticed the Black Roses VHS was literally right by his head. And I even called it out in the show. I was like, wow, that's a deep cut. Black Roses. It's terrible. And he was like, yeah, whatever. And then that stuck in my warped mind, Chris, of like, I'm going to make Chris watch Black Roses.
That was a blast, dude, by the way. That was a blast.
Oh, that was so fun, man. Yeah.
But, I love it.
Yeah, Madam Web, I deserve it.
What about
deserve it.
let's just real quick. Have you seen any good horror? We're just past Halloween, but this is a time when people go exploring. Have you come across anything? I happened to see one in the theater last night that I'll give a recommend.
What is it?
Heretic.
I heard that's awesome.
It's cool, man. It's not like super bloody or gory, but it's really, really tense. It's got like it's a lot of talking, but it's like really uncomfortable interrogation type scenes, kind of like the beginning of, or actually all of, Inglourious Bastards. Like sometimes it can be just really tense when somebody in power is sort of grilling somebody else. Yeah, really cool. I liked it.
That's great. I recently saw oh shit, it's what is the name of the POV Jason slasher movie? When violent?
Oh, you saw In a Human Nature.
In a Violent Way.
In a Violent Way. Human Nature. Yeah.
Yeah. In a Violent Way.
Yeah, isn't that cool?
Is great. And we also talked about it when Rob was on, but I also saw When Evil Lurks or Where Evil Lurks.
Yes, I think it's When, but the Argentine horror film.
There's some stuff in that movie, man. There's some stuff in that.
The Substance is now available to get, and that has some really cool body horror stuff that I feel like I haven't really seen since Cronenberg's days.
Okay, that's at the top of my list. I might check that out this weekend.
Kudos to Demi Moore, who's, I think in the movie she's explicitly playing 50, but in real life she's like 60, and you don't even like pause because you're just like, yeah, that makes sense. She's gorgeous still. But
yeah,
it's a movie about, a gorgeous actress who feels like her best days are behind her, and she like wants to recover that at like just about any cost. It's really fascinating.
I've heard nothing but good things about that.
Yeah.
I've heard everyone raving about that one. So.
We're in an overall decent time for horror. I don't know if we're at the height for movies, but I think we are in comics. There's so many good horror comics out there right now. So many.
Yeah, I loved your top horror comics video that you did recently. That was awesome.
Yeah, The Road, Misty, just all sorts of horror that you might not have heard of, but that's badass. Love talking about this stuff with you, Jim. Congrats on your Kickstarter successfully funding. How long does the late pledge function go?
I'm still trying to research that and figure that out, because eventually Kickstarter sends me my money so I can pay the printing bill. And I'm assuming once they send me my money, does that kind of cut off the late pledge? I've been trying to figure out how this works, but I'm also in production mode on everything. Like we're lettering the book right now and doing all this. So things should be shipping out at the end of January for everyone. But thank you again, dude, for all the help hyping it. It was a success, and I'm relieved that it went well, because I'm immediately starting the next book. I'm doing.
I was wondering if you would be. Yeah. Is it going to be another like Kickstarter Defective Comics Presents?
Yeah, it's going to be the Spider-Man book, basically.
Great idea.
He's the next character. So
I think there's a lot of potential there.
I just want to keep doing these, man, and I just want to write and draw my own stuff and just be my own boss, and I enjoy the hustle of it. I enjoy, like, I'm good at doing the hype and the hustle part of it.
Yeah,
some artists do not want to do that. I understand that, but I'm just like pretty good at, I think, putting things out there and hyping it up, and that's what you have to do.
You really do. Anything else you want to plug right now, like Ink Pulp?
Ink Pulp Live, guys, check it out. We don't have a set schedule, but we go basically every 2 weeks. So please follow my social, which is just my name. You can find me, jimafood.com, my website. Chris, what do you got for us?
Obviously, comic tropes. By the time this comes out, I hope that the next episode is uploaded. Doing a deep dive on a great Spider-Man story and talking a lot about writer Chip Zdarsky. Got a lot to say about him and what I enjoy and appreciate with his work. And then I don't know the exact date, but I have a backup little story. It's very small, coming out in Radiant Black. So
yes,
just keep your eyes.
You sent me something from that, and it looked really beautiful.
Thanks, man. That's nice of you.
Yeah,
really been enjoying Ink Pulp Live with you and Sean lately. So, congrats.
Thank you. Yeah, we've got some fantastic guests coming up, and one of them is courtesy of you. It's Danny Earls, and
good. Good.
Met him. We had a whole thing in New York where we just randomly ran into each other on the escalator after one of the convention days was over.
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, your appearance on Pros and Cons and Weekly Spinner Rack. We started chatting, and he's like, I love what you're doing with Ink Pulp. And Sean and I were kind of like, do you want to come on and draw with us? Like, very easy. Just that's how things work.
He's so nice. He's
one
talented.
thing just leads to another, and he is like the sweetest dude, man.
Can I just tell you, like, the funniest thing about New York Comic Con, which we all just did a little while ago, the town is full of comic nerds.
Yes.
There's one night where I'm feeling lazy and I don't want to like go to a sit down restaurant. I just decide to go to a street vendor and get a big Italian sausage with all the fixings. And I'm taking it, and I walk towards Times Square to just people watch. I'm just going to it's big, gross food out of like the hustle and bustle of all these people because it's so crowded. All of a sudden, Danny and his fiance Emma just like walk up, and I'm like,
no way. Yeah,
they're like, oh, you know, like, and we had a nice talk and stuff, but I was just like so embarrassed, like to just sort of be seen with this like big, gross, like junk food in front of them. I was like, I'll be unseen in this swarm of people.
That's the ironic thing about New York is you're like, oh, I'll never run into this or that person, and then you run into them, like you said, just on the street or in a like bodega getting a bottle of water or something, or
yep it happened a couple times.
That's cool.
Wow, Black Roses, how dare you, sir? No, but thank you sincerely. I had a great time. I always have a good time talking about this stuff. It's one of my favorite things to do, dude.
Yeah, well we'll web it up next episode.
Sounds good to
me.
We'll
do it.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And people, just keep things trashy until then.
Yes, please.
That's what we want. Keep things trashy. Just bundle it up, tie it up in a bag, leave it there in the kitchen, take it out next week.
Definitely.
All right.
See you guys next time.
Trash Movie Bonanza.
No! God, no!
The Black Roses logo works every time. Jamie, roll it.
Give me 2 seconds. My wife is calling. I just want to make sure that it's not an emergency or something.
Of course.
Hey, Chrissy. Yeah, I'm fine. Why? Oh, I was acting. I'm doing the podcast. Sorry to scare you, Chris. We're just playing. I'm fine. Okay.
Oh shit! Tell her that's my fault. Apologize for me after the show. Should we put that in the show?
Maybe in the back. Maybe we'll put that over the credits or something. Oh my god. I feel so bad. I didn't even think of like what that reaction would be upstairs. Chrissy's upstairs, and like she of course just heard me screaming bloody murder.
Like and subscribe. Thank you.